Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first ever podcast of Rosebud is a Sled. I thought it would be fun to do something a little bit different than just me writing screeds and screeds of how much I love movies on the internet, and I thought I would do me talking screeds and screeds of how much I love movies. However, it's not just going to be me talking this time. There's another voice, the industrious David Smith I have with me. Hello, David.
Hello.
David is our resident horror movie buff and psychologist, so he's going to get into the brains of some movie directors and tell us just what on earth they were thinking. And the first movie that we're going to be looking at is a film called Martyrs. It's a French film that I came to through David. David showed myself and my wife Chrissy this movie and completely horrified us with it. It's not a fun film, but it's one that David's crazy about. And I thought we'd have a wee bit of discussion about it. The plot of the film is fairly interesting. It starts off as a sort of standard home invasion film, except that we're from the viewpoint of the home invaders. They've got some history, and they're breaking into a house to kill everyone inside. But we find out pretty quickly that there's some other stuff going on. When once the entire family is dead, Mademoiselle, an evil old French lady, as they tend to be, turns up and takes our hero, Anna, into a cell downstairs and tortures her for a long time. This is basically the film. It's sort of the epitome of torture porn, although I'm sure David will argue that point in a moment, in as much as it's about torture and its efficacy on the mind. What does it do to people? The argument of Mademoiselle in the film is basically that people in extreme suffering and extreme pain are closer to God. And in fact, I think she can probably phrase it better than I can.
You lock someone in a room with no light. Soon they begin to suffer. Then you feed that suffering. Slowly, methodically, systematically, coldly, for a long time. Martyrs are very rare. A true martyr is a special person. They are exceptional beings. They withstand paralyzing pain, young lady. They can survive total deprivation. They carry all the sins of the world. It's their sacrifice.
See, now, straight from the off there, we know that we've got an evil old lady because she's got a backing track of soft piano. So that's the real problem with that one. But that's basically what the movie is about, is can we find out about the afterlife by torturing a poor French girl for years. The movie came out in 2008. It's directed by Pascal Laugier, who basically, he said that he was inspired by Hostel, which when Eli Roth is your main source of inspiration, you know you're really in trouble. He said that he wanted to make a movie about pain rather than a movie about suffering, which probably tells you more than you want to know about or Monsieur Laugier himself. It's quite funny reading the Wikipedia page on the Martyrs film, actually, because it seems so horrified at the very concept. It's got lines like, as a result of her selfless actions of refusing to desert Lucy and of helping Sarah, Anna becomes the group's latest subject and is imprisoned in a chamber. You can hear the shocked appalledness of whoever wrote that quote. But it's not just me talking. You can probably tell already that I'm not the hugest fan of the film. I think it's a bit of a strange one, but I've got with me David, who loves it to bits. So he's going to tell you about it as well. So David, first of all, how did you come to find this movie?
Okay, so when I first started getting into horror films in a big way, I remember looking for some of those, top 10 goriest horrors, etc. online. And this one, Martyrs, just kept on coming up. People talking about, this great new French horror scene. We got this, Switchblade Romance, and Inside that are all coming out, and really winning over American critics, winning over American audiences, but also doing something very different.
And what would you say was it that was different then? What was it that people were picking up on?
Well, see, what you got with Martyrs, this is why it actually surprised me that he credits Hostel, is you couldn't feasibly do Martyrs in 3D, right? It would just be too grim. Martyrs is a film that shows it has a lot of violence, but never makes it feel like it's glorifying it. It never makes
I'm not
it.
so sure. Have you ever been in Disneyland Paris where they do that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids where it sneezes water on you? You just do that, but paint it red.
No, the thing is, you're never meant to be wanting more of the violence. You're not looking for a money shot like you get in something like a Saw film where you see a trap and you go, oh god, I'm going to see this guy's corpse by the end. I mean, most of the bad bits of Martyrs, you've got a traumatized woman coming in and shooting up a bunch of a pair of teenagers, which is definitely far from fun. This happens during a scene of domestic bliss. Then we've got the entire second half, the torture segments, just go on and on, but not, but in a way that you gradually become accustomed to it. It's never there for shock value. It's never there to be banter.
But I suppose, if I may, in a way, that's what I enjoy less about the films. I mean, I'm committing horror movie sin by saying I absolutely love the Saw franchise, every single one of them. Because, for me, watching a horror movie is very similar, for example, to riding a roller coaster, where it is about the adrenaline rush. It's about that moment of, it's coming, there it is. It's very much about the money shot moment. Whereas with Martyrs, it's so drawn out, and for anyone who hasn't seen it, I want you to understand, it's a good hour of the film, at least, you think, David, of really horrid stuff going on, and brutally horrid rather than sort of camply fun. This is not Jason at Camp Sleepaway. This is really kind of nasty.
Okay, yeah, but it's supposed to be nasty. I mean, like, I like the Saw films as well, for what it's worth. As seen all 7 of them dozens of times. But that's the kind of horror that you described here, kind of almost like a ghost train horror, where it's like, stuff jumps out, music builds up, and while you're in the cinema, you might go like, ooh, but it doesn't really do much afterwards, right? You're not meant to. No one's going to lose sleep over a Saw film, but they might watch it through closed fingers, right?
You just light a cigarette and feel bad about yourself.
And Martyrs isn't like that. Martyrs is using the light cigarette and feel bad about yourself metaphor. What Martyrs tries to get out of you isn't a one night stand. Martyrs is there for love. It's it's a film that intends to stick with you. It's a film that's not going to go anywhere. And it's a film that is disturbing on a different kind of level. I remember the first time I watched it, first thing we said after was, well, that was bloody visceral. That word visceral came up an awful lot. This incredibly dynamic kind of second half.
Yeah. So, David, you write for a horror movie website. What website is that?
It's Horror Cult Films.
Horror Cult Films. So presumably you know bits and pieces of more sort of technical aspects of horror films in terms of cinematography and stuff that I'm ignorant of. How does Martyrs hold up against your average horror film on that front?
To be honest, I don't overly know the terminology myself. But I mean, what you got with Martyrs is it manages to do these kind of very slow, almost tranquil kind of scenes as well, right? It doesn't go for any of those kind of ambiguous fast cut shots that have become really fashionable in the last decade or so either. In terms of what I think you call the mise en scène, I purposely avoid detailing it in reviews.
That's all right. I purposely avoid using the phrase mise en scène.
I was using it to show that I know it, but choose not to use it. But I think it does go down to that kind of division of horror that we're talking about. Is it something that's is it the ghost train horror? Is it something else? And for me, it very much is something else. It's there to be like I think Orwell referred to the future as like a giant boot stamping on your face. That's what Martyrs is like.
And this is a frail French person cutting off your skin. It's the same thing. It's funny though, because you personally have a lot to answer for this film, of course, because the first time that I saw it was at your apartment, and there was, I think, maybe 4 or 5 of us there, and you told us there are these 2 films that we absolutely have to watch. David and I used to have horror movie nights where we'd watch horrors, and they were usually sort of light and bright-hearted and campy. And then there was this one night where we came over, and there are these 2 films that I've just discovered that we absolutely have to watch. One of them was Martyrs, and the other was the aforementioned Inside, which is equally disgusting. Another French film, correct?
Yeah, that's right.
About a home invader who desperately wants to cut out a woman's fetus. And I think it's fair to say...
On Christmas Eve as well.
On Christmas Eve, of course. It's basically The Grinch, but French. And I think it's fair to say that you really caused an impact on the entire room that night. So I suppose now is your time to defend yourself for fully traumatizing myself and my wife and 3 other people.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason it's a film I like showing people is
It's because you hate other people.
Sometimes, but no, it's part of the reason I like showing this film to people is it's a horror film that doesn't use the same kind of tropes, but it's a horror film that it's a lot more relentless than other horror films are. Mm-hmm. It really sort of shows the horror can be quite a draining experience, quite an emotional experience as well. Yeah. And actually quite a sort of profound one, in a way that it's not when you watch like a Friday the 13th film. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to sound like a snob. I bloody love Friday the 13th films as well. But I've never you wouldn't feel moved by the plight of Jason. I mean, what this kind of...
I don't know. He had money issues. Come on, give the guy some slack.
Yeah, and an absent father. Yeah. It's something that's almost like a horror with a kind of art house sensibility to it, which again probably sounds like quite a snobby thing to say, but
no, I think it's an important distinction, and I'm interested by your use of the phrase art, because what it comes down to, and I think it's a discussion that is had around horror more than any other genre, is there a point where the art can go too far? I imagine you'd say it probably can't.
Not really. I mean, you used the phrase torture porn earlier on, and basically, if I take it that phrase, it's a torture film, right? But calling it torture porn, it's like watching a drama and calling that emotional porn, or watching a comedy and calling that funny porn. I mean, it's just doing what that.
You watch different comedies than I do,
and I kind of think horror gets unfairly treated if people talking about potential social consequences of it. But I think most attempts to try and censor or block these films is ultimately sort of shafting a target market that would want to see it for the benefit of a whole load of people that would never watch it anyway.
Was this film censored or blocked anywhere?
I don't know if we've got the same one in the UK or they had in France, but I guess it's all part of the same conversation though about are there negative consequences of more and more of these films being released? Can it go too far? Mm-hmm. I mean, I think as far as if a film can go too far or not. This pushes the envelope more than most. It's got some fairly nasty shit in it, right? But at the same time, it's not got anything that wouldn't feasibly happen if in real life. It's not doing anything that we feasibly wouldn't see, what we feasibly couldn't get from the news in it. And it's also more importantly, it's not doing it in a way that would make the audience guffaw. It's not going to make the audience happy to see this. It's not a party movie.
Which I suppose is the main... which makes it all the funnier that you showed it to us at a party.
Yeah.
But I suppose that is the main distinction of the phrase torture porn, which I don't even think is particularly gratuitous a phrase anymore, because it refers to, shall we say, a malicious enjoyment of gore, which there's always kind of been, but when that becomes unhealthy, as it can do, and I think it's fair to say that there are people who have an unhealthy attraction to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That's what makes it torture porn. So you take something like Saw 7 or whatever, which is purely about that gut visceral reaction to, oh yeah, he got it good. And that does really bridge the gap between legitimate art and torture porn. What I would ask, and I'm interested in your take on this, is if we're not supposed to enjoy the movie, what's the point? Because granted, yes, we're not supposed to enjoy, say, Schindler's List, but that has more of a grounding in reality. That has more... Well, I mean, does it? You know, would you say that has relative association with the common zeitgeist, or do you think this is just as relevant a movie? Do you think this is something that we're not meant to enjoy because it applies to us?
Right, I think the enjoyment thing is maybe a bit of a red herring, because I mean all sorts of movies aren't really there to be enjoyed. You know, they're there to be felt in some way. And I mean, ultimately, a film's got to do something for you in the cinema, or it's ultimately failed. It depends what it's trying to do. I don't think Pascal would be sitting there gutted if he heard that we didn't enjoy his movie. Because you know, I think it's rightfully say it's not really there to be fun. I mean,
which, for the record, Monsieur Logier, if you are listening, I love you and everything you've ever done. You're the best.
Yeah, I liked everything he did except the other two movies. But the thing is, like Martyrs is definitely not meant to be enjoyed. It's the same sort of thing that you're not going to sit there and enjoy a tragic play, for example.
Sure.
I mean, in that sense, why do we engage with tragic plays at all? Actually.
Well, I mean, again, I would say it's because we find something of ourselves in the tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose in Martyrs, it's probably more of a means of trying to sort of capture a kind of a sort of brutality that none of us, thankfully, none of us will ever, well, hopefully, none of us will really have to experience, but it's something that would still go on. I mean, the film's almost got I love it. Can I spoil the ending a little bit here?
Yeah, I mean, try and keep it out of full-on spoilers, but go on.
Okay, so try and be vague about what I say. For all the punishment the character goes through at the end, I like that she still can be interpreted as winning. I like that it can still be interpreted that while she was completely powerless by the end, she overcame Marcel, and that was entirely through playing on our fear of what happens after life, what's going to happen to us in our brief time on this immortal coil end. You know,
all got very melancholic there.
Yeah, I like the film's kind of able to sort of take a sort of medium like a torture one, but make it something that's a lot more melancholy, something that's a lot more hard hitting, something that isn't fun, but something that does hit you, and also they managed to do it in a. They also managed to do it in a way where there is this sort of philosophical aspect to the ending. There is still this kind of fear that's causing these other characters to do this. Their fear of what happens to them next. To like that, she can still win by playing on that uncertainty, but uncertainty is still there, and ultimately basically to face up the fact that we've killed another person to get there. And I kind of think the ending goes some way towards justifying what you just watched for the last 45 minutes. Actually, in fact, without that kind of arc, without her seeing her friend pulling it through, I don't know what exactly. I suppose it wouldn't feel like there's much of a point to the film at all.
It's interesting. It's definitely interesting. So in closing, I think what David is saying is that if you're going to watch the film, watch it to, don't watch it on a good day. Watch it on a day that you really want to feel like life may be shit, but at least I'm never going to get skinned alive. Is that pretty much on the point there?
That's right, yeah. One thing I was wondering if I could ask you, Jamie.
Of course.
Because we know it was a US remake was about to be coming out, I guess I'm wondering what you reckon, what form you reckon that's going to take.
I have an interesting position on that, in as much as I've often found with various US remakes of The Ring and The Grudge, etc., that the US remakes are generally not as fun because they're usually PG down a little bit.
Yeah.
Interestingly, this is a film that I watched thinking this could use a little bit of PGing. So, who knows? Maybe I'll actually really enjoy the remake if it's not quite as visceral. Or maybe you're absolutely right, and if it doesn't have that visceral element, the film just won't work at all. But that's something that we're going to have to find out in due course, I suppose.
Yeah.
But for now, I think we'll leave it there because we're at the 20-minute mark, so we don't want to bore people with our back and forth forever. I want to thank you, David Smith, for joining me tonight to discuss Martyrs. Hopefully we'll have you back on again before too long to discuss some other depraved corner of your mind. But for now, this has been Rosebud is a Sled, and thank you very much for listening. Tune in for further podcasts and for more articles which I will upload in time. That is a wrap.